What's up, OG fam and first time fam? Welcome to another edition of Man to Man. I'm David Wazicki, your favorite certified transformational nutrition coach. And today we are back again with another great guest. Why wouldn't we? This brother is an entrepreneur, he's an influencer, fellow girl dad, also a skateboarder, which I want to see if I have time to squeeze in because I got some dealings in the skateboard world. But anyway, in the meantime, let's give it up for my man, the one, the only, the Lheighton Cook. What's up, brother?
Appreciate it, man. Thank you, man. I appreciate the introduction. It's a good time. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited too. Been looking forward to having you on here since we finally were able to meet in person at that conference with the great Bedros. So, yeah, bro. There's a lot of places I can start, and I'm gonna just start the way I usually start with everybody who comes on here for the first time. We got a special check system, and we call it getting man to man blue check certified. One question we ask every man. No man has yet to give me the same answer twice. No pressure, Lheighton.
Right on.
But are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm ready.
All right, my man. What does masculinity mean to you?
For me, the immediate word that comes to mind when you ask that is leadership, and being able to effectively lead. I think, it's. I actually saw what is his name? I'm forgetting, man. He was, I guess, technically the star next to Michael B. Jordan in Creed.
Jonathan Majors.
Yes, yeah, he was talking about it and how he was like, man, it's fluid in the sense of it could be a lot of different things. Leadership is the first thing that comes to mind. But it also means, bringing a calmness in your household, a structure, which again can be tied back to leadership. And so in my mind, that's what it reminds me of. And, at least one of the most important pillars to me when I think masculinity, for sure, especially, me being, the leader of my family. I want to make sure that I'm doing that the best way possible. And I really feel like that's showing up in a masculine way.
That's a dope answer. I appreciate you for that.
Did I nail it? Did I get it?
You're certified, my man. You're certified. You're in. You're in the club.
Cool.
And I love that because you're talking about leadership on your YouTube channel in particular. There's a lot. Well, YouTube, TikTok, all your socials. Really, you give a lot of great tips, not good tips. I think great tips for men. And I think, in particular, one thing, if you don't mind speaking to it a little bit, I feel like some of this, I feel like I've heard you say this, so please correct me if I'm wrong. When you and I spoke last in person, where you had mentioned, or maybe it's when you gave your presentation during that half day, but you had mentioned something about your dad, and you mentioned something about your dad, not effectively not being around for your formative years. Can you speak to that and how that possibly impacted you now
100%.
taking this approach?
Oh yeah, 100%. It was literally the reason why I started making content, the content that I make, because him not being there. I guess it's important for me to tell the story. The shorter version is my dad, even before I was born, actually especially before I was born, had a life of in and out of, in the system, getting in trouble, doing things he wasn't supposed to, selling, I'll let you kind of fill in the blanks. And so he was kind of in and out, met my mom, they started getting more serious. They knew they wanted to get married and get the picket fence and the dog and the kids and the minivan, all that stuff, that lifestyle. And my mom was just starting out of being a registered nurse. And so before that, obviously as a student, you're not making money. But then when she started making money, I think it started actually her making money in congruence with my dad trying to give that life up because I was on the way. Now she was in a position where she was making more money and he wasn't. And a lot of that, I feel like there was some insecurity that came with that. And so he struggled with it. He loved me. He loved being with me, but he hated the idea of even being perceived as a stay-at-home dad. And so my mom, remember, me and my dad did a podcast actually on forgiveness, because he was gone from when I was 10 months old, all the way up until he just came home in the beginning of 2020, right before the pandemic. And so I was 20. He was gone for 24 years, right? And
Wow.
so, so
Wow.
he just came home just a couple years ago. But we did a podcast on forgiveness, and so that's out there too. But anyways, all that to say that that was a tough time for him. My mom and him got in an argument about something about money, and she was like, "Yeah, well, you can't run up the phone bill or whatever it is anymore because we don't have it like that anymore, whatever." So we could
Yeah.
have it like that again. We could have it like that. And so he's kind of like almost like taking it as a challenge. We could get back to that, whatever. And so she called him, some names, called him out of his names that no man wants to be called by their women. You don't want to look like you're feminine or not the leader by any means. And that put him in a spot of like, feeling insecure, and said, all right, cool, let's go back and get to the bag. So he did that.
Huh.
He got caught up. It was a home invasion. And
Damn.
a couple, I say boys, but they're not really his boys because, some other stuff happened, and, they're not really there for him like that. But anyways, him and his boys went on this mission, got caught up, and out of them, I think it was four of them, he was the only one that got caught, and he got 30 years. And so he ended up getting home a little bit earlier, but still, it was like, boom, judge slammed the gavel down and say, 30 years, man, it's a wrap. You're not learning, right? So anyways,
Yeah.
that was tough for me in all kinds of different ways, man. I remember a lot of days or a lot of nights, being a little kid, just like crying myself to sleep, just like, man, I miss my dad. And, why does everybody else have their dad and all this stuff in elementary
Yeah.
school, like making Father's Day, presents. And I know they're going to go home
Oh
and give
God.
their gift to their dad, but I'm kind of just making the story in my mind, like, oh, I'll give it to him one day, whatever. So it's tough,
Mhm.
right? All that being said, I had to figure out how to learn some of these, I guess, masculine habits and traditions on my own. And so I started reading, watching a lot of YouTube, looking up to just different online virtual mentors, via YouTube. And I
Yeah.
learned a lot. And so now I wanted to give back and pay it forward and, share some of these things with the next generation. And so really my dad not being there was literally the catalyst of, these businesses moving forward.
Amazing. I feel that so many times I'll say the good ones like yourself that take tragedy into triumph, uh, trauma in particular, because that was traumatic in a lot of ways. And, trauma comes in many different forms. And the fact that you almost you have this mission as a result, and I feel like that mission is also somewhat cathartic. It's like you said, you're giving back for what you didn't have, so you want to ensure the next generation's able to have that. That's amazing. You also brought up forgiveness
Mm-hmm.
now. And you brought up the conversation you had with your dad. So I'd love to dig in a little bit deeper. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, the fact that you were able to have a conversation with your dad after he was out of your life for 24-ish years,
Mm-hmm.
he comes back into your life. You have this sit down with him in front of a camera to share with, I mean, the world effectively, right?
Mm-hmm.
YouTube. How was that for you?
Yeah, it was crazy, man. Like it was like, let me give a better description than just the word crazy, but it was like so many different emotions, man. It was like,
Sure.
we had kind of already had the conversation before Aaron, and kind of how it happened was, as I said, he came back in the very beginning of 2020. I believe it was
Yeah.
like, like the very beginning of February, but you guys know what happened a couple weeks before that, or even just maybe a
Right.
week. It was Kobe passed away. And I remember
Right.
being on the
Right.
freeway, and I was on the phone with him, and we were having there are different conversations now that he's closer to coming home, because all throughout my childhood I'd heard him like, man, you never know, I'll be coming home soon. He kind of always have this, like, he wanted to surprise us. As I started
Yeah.
to get older, because in the beginning when I was younger, I appreciated that. I was like, man, like the mystery. Maybe he's coming home, this time. And he wasn't. It wasn't his time. And as I got older, I kind of get tired of that, man. Man, just tell me the date, man.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm not playing
Yep.
games. Like, I'm
Yep.
not a little kid anymore. Like, what's up? How much time you have, right? And he still wouldn't tell me, but I knew that we're getting closer. And so on this one call, I knew he was getting really close because he asked me to pick him up. He said, "Hey, I'm gonna need you to pick me up." And so it was a different conversation. And like literally, man, like a couple of days before that, What, can you hear me, David? David?
Yeah, all good.
Okay,
You're
sorry,
here.
your screen went black. That's why it. Anyways, we'll cut that part out. I can't see
Yeah.
you, but you can see and hear me, so I'll just assume everything's good. So, anyways, the conversations were different around this time, and so a couple of days before that, Kobe had passed, and that had been on my mind because even though I'm not even a huge basketball fan like that, Kobe is a staple in pretty much everyone's community. He's a hero in a lot
Yeah.
of people's eyes, and so when he passed away, that affected me in a different way. I was watching all his interviews again and all this stuff, right? And I told my dad, I said, "Hey, I don't know how this is going to work. I have a lot of frustration. I'm still
Mm.
angry. You know, you've missed a lot. High school graduation, my wedding, the birth of my first daughter, and all these different things. I kind of went down the list. But I
Yeah.
said, hey, you know, you never know when you're going to go. There's a lot of people that have passed and we've seen, you know, RIP to this person and that person. But for some reason with Kobe, that really was like, you never know, man. And especially that he passed away with his daughter. I was like, I don't want to ever hold
Yeah.
on to any kind of grudge or negativity or anything like that. You just never know. And so, hey, when you come home,
Yeah.
let's start from a clean slate. I just want to be fresh. Let's start from square one. I want to get to the point where we can become best friends. And really, it happened within like a week, maybe. You know, we were already like talking about all kinds of things that I don't even talk about with my mom. I was comfortable talking to him about and all this stuff. And it was
Mm.
crazy, man. It was just literally getting to the point of like, hey, I don't know how this is going to work, but I don't want to hold on to this. I know you don't want to hold on to this. Let's move on. The past is the past. We can't get those 24 years back, but we can build upon what we have in front of us. And so that's just kind of how it went.
Awesome. I I'd love to know, for you, I mean, with all of that said, where do you think um where do you think men and practicing forgiveness I mean, clearly it's of utmost importance. Is this
Sure.
something that you have spoken to or provided, one of your tips around or conversations around? Is there something more there around it? Because look, I've had my dealings with my father. We've had this on and off kind of estranged relationship where, granted, in my life, but not always effective, not like really in my life, and not physically there. And when I was a kid, yes, he was amazing. And yeah, and then fast forward like the past 10, 15 years, just estranged. Like, he didn't come to my
Mhm.
wedding. I still don't know to this day why.
Yeah.
He chose not to. He went to my younger brother's wedding, didn't come to mine.
Mm.
I don't know. But there's a lot
Sure.
there. And there was just a point for a good number of years. I thought this would last for the rest of my life, where we just didn't talk anymore.
Mhm.
Um, then I went down the path of forgiving, which I'm still doing. I'm not 100%
Sure.
forgiving of all the things he did. I'm not sure if you are of your dad, but I just, I feel like it's big because a lot of us men do not do that. Number one, right? We harbor, we find other ways, we find vices,
Mhm.
drinking, gambling, doing, whatever. Whatever those vices may be.
Mhm.
I mean, even emotional eating. And I mean, it goes in so many different directions. And Ken blowing up and getting angry. And I think that's a lot of times where this toxic masculinity
Mhm.
idea comes
Right.
from. I think because just a lot of men harbor those feelings and there's no outlet. And instead they go for these vices, or they go for the way that they know, which is just burst out, yell, scream,
Right.
rage, do something physical, get that energy out.
Mhm.
Um, I think at this point I'm really speaking to my own personal experience
Sure.
and commentary on it. But I do, my whole point here is forgiving men, being able to forgive and understand it and practice it, I think is critical now more than ever. And you alluding to leadership in
Mhm.
family, leadership in just how you show up in the world. But I think, family in particular, we're both girl dads. I'm actually wearing my. I had drop off this morning, and she gave me a Berenstain sticker
That's dope.
and put it on. She put it on my hoodie, and I was like, I'm leaving
Yeah,
it
yeah.
for the
Oh, for
day. So
sure.
when she comes back, I want her to know, Daddy's been rocking it all day, proudly.
That's dope.
Um,
Love it, man.
so thank you. And just in general, I just, want to ask you, like, how has this experience of forgiving your dad influenced you, if at
Hmm.
all, with now how you approach raising your daughter?
Sure. Yeah, man. I mean, first of all, forgiveness is everything, man. Whether it's male or female, you can't. The way that I think about it, and actually what I was thinking about when I took the step forward to forgiving my dad and kind of leading that conversation was, I have a very my I like a very big goals. I have very big goals and dreams, and it's going to take a lot to get there, and I understand that. And I can't get to where I'm trying to get to and be the kind of leader I'm trying to be if I'm holding stuff, holding grudges with anybody. I don't. It doesn't have to be my dad. It can be someone from the third grade who wronged me, or whoever. Like, it could just be you just don't want to have any kind of negative energy holding you down, weighing you down. That's like an anchor. And this was the
Yeah.
biggest anchor in my life, was the relationship with my dad, and or the lack
Mm.
thereof. And so this was kind of a
Yeah.
way to kind of let that anchor go and be able to just keep going and ascend to the top. Because one of the important lessons that I learned from Bezos was, if you're trying to get to a certain place, you have to be willing to do absolutely anything to get there. And this was one of the things that I believed needed to be done to be able to accomplish A, B, or C. And so that was another thing that I had in mind leading up to that conversation was, I understand this conversation is going to happen at some point. I'm not really sure when or if I'm
Yeah.
ready for it, but I'll do the best I can. And so when it came time to have that conversation, I felt that I was more ready than ever. I was actually excited to have it. I was excited to move past this. When I was
Mm.
younger, I was very hurt, and not to say that I wasn't hurt in my teenage years, but you're a little bit more aggressive. You're frustrated. Now you have, you're going through puberty, all this stuff. Now you're mad. It's not like you're sad anymore, but you're mad, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's both, but
Yeah.
really, like, you show it outwardly as anger, and so that's kind of what it was. But as I got older, I realized, wow, okay, well, I'm in the next phase of my life. I have little ones of my own. My youngest daughter, she was already here, and then my wife Betsy was pregnant again, and so I was like, hey, I got two little girls. I want them to know their grandfather. I want them to have a great relationship. They're not even going to know about his past unless we tell them, and so I want to be
Mm.
able to gift them that, and not have them have any pain or hurt that I went through. And so it was a way for me to, number one, be a leader, also to
Mm.
practice control of one's emotions, and be like, hey, I understand that what I'm feeling right now is very real. It's a real emotion, but let's do
Yeah.
this for the better of the rest of the family. So there was that. And then also too, just making sure that my daughters didn't feel a fraction of what I felt. And so I don't want them to ever feel a void of missing their grandpa. Well, I know my grandpa on my mom's side. What about your dad? You know what I'm saying? I didn't want any of that. And so
Yeah.
there was a lot of things going on, but all that to say, this is just a golden opportunity for me to practice, learning some of these skills I'm trying to teach to the next guys anyways.
Love that. Love that. Thank you for that. So in these skills, I mean, you talk about a lot of things. Being more presentable, being trustworthy, self discipline, and then like you continue to do in this conversation, which I love, and appreciate you for doing this. You talk about some of your
For
vulnerabilities, and that's
sure.
something you've been sharing. You've been sharing more and more socially, Instagram and again TikTok and YouTube and such.
Hmm.
Anxiety in particular. There's one story I've heard it. I'd love for you to um, tell the listeners about and viewers about this one moment in particular. You alluded to your wife and your wife being pregnant, and that's what this anxiety story kind of revolves around. Would you mind sharing that
Oh
story?
yeah, absolutely, man. No problem at all. So basically, to kind of lay the foundation of the story, I have always, and this is something I still struggle with. It's gotten a lot better, but still struggle with the anxiety of anything as it pertains to the hospital. Not good at drawing blood, getting shots, just being in there, man. It's just like, nah, man, it's just not for me, right? This came from, at least what I believe it came from, was when I
Yeah.
was, I want to say maybe 5 or 6, I had to get some shots. Didn't like the doctor then, but there wasn't really any real trauma then. It was just, I just didn't like it. But had to
Yeah.
get shots. I didn't want to do it. So I'm running around the room and the doctor's chasing me around. It was probably way more violent in my head than really what was going on. But I'm running around the room and he's chasing me with this
Yeah.
needle. And he kind of looks at my
Yeah.
mom and he gives her the head nod, like, you're going to have to hold him down. And I look at her, the woman that I trust, the one person I trust over everybody. She does hold me
Yeah.
down and he gives me the shot. And I'm like, like freaking out, like it's so crazy, whatever, right? So again, probably way
Yeah.
worse in my head than really what happened. But that's kind of what happened. I think that's where that trauma came from. So fast forward to my wife being pregnant. Exciting news, but terrifying at the same time for me because I'm like, man, I'm excited, but like we're going to spend a lot of time over these next 9 months in the hospital, different visits, checkups, the
Yeah.
birth, what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like I'm for sure going to pass out, all these different things right in my mind. And so that was my attitude going into it. Not a great attitude, but this is just me being realistic and knowing myself.
Sure.
So
Sure.
the first OBGYN visit, the first one, man, I wish I was lying on this, but the first visit, we go and I'm like looking up, actually prior to going, I was looking up all these different ways on how to help your anxiety when you're in a stressful situation. So I was looking up different ways to
Yeah.
help, kind of curb my anxiety for this visit. And for the most part, it was working. I was proud of myself. I was in there. We were talking to the doctor. They did the first ultrasound. We got to see the baby, and she wasn't even obviously developed yet. We just kind of got to see, her moving around, and we're like, wow, this is crazy. And it's just this awesome
Yeah.
moment, right? And I'm even more excited because I'm happy about this moment, but I'm also happy that I'm here, and I don't even feel anxiety at all. I don't feel the pins and needles. I don't feel anything. Awesome. So when you leave that room with the doctor, then you go in to the next room with the nurse, and she just gives you the do's and don'ts of pregnancy. Hey, don't eat this food, stay away from this food, make sure you're walking every day, kind of the list, the little packet they give you. So she's going down the list.
Yeah.
One of the things she says is hey, just be careful with salty foods. Because sometimes with salty foods, like the baby's veins are, well, basically she was saying everything that you eat, the baby gets, right? And salty
Yeah.
foods can have the little salt grains. Sometimes for a little baby's veins, they're paper thin, and salt can't pass through those little veins, and so it can cause the veins to burst. And like the way she said it was so descriptive, I literally visualized it in my mind. I said, "Oh hell no!" I was
Mm.
feeling good. I was doing so good, and then I started visualizing it, and then my heart starts beating faster, and I'm like, "Oh snap!" And I can
Mm.
feel my breath start to get a
Mm.
little bit heavier, and then I start to sweat a little bit, and I'm like, okay, hold on, let me figure this out. Let me just pretend I got a business call. So I pull my phone out. I say, hey, real quick, I got to step in the hallway. I got to take this call real quick. I say, oh yeah, no problem, right? I walk outside. They have no idea what's going on. I walk outside, and I'm like pacing back and forth in the hallway, and it's probably making me even more nervous because I'm pacing back and forth. And I'm like, come on, man, like
Yeah.
slapping myself, like, come on, baby, you got this. It's all good. It's just words. Like nothing even happened. The baby's fine. And so, anyways, one thing led to another. I was trying to make myself feel better. It wasn't working. And so I saw a bathroom maybe about 15 feet away. And so I was like, hey, let me just, and so obviously pregnant women go to the OBGYN, obviously. So it was only a one person bathroom. So I was like, hey, I can go in the bathroom, be by myself for a second, splash some water in my face. I don't have to worry about, anybody coming in or whatever. I can just focus. I'll be fine. So I walked to the bathroom.
Yep.
And as I walk over there, the 15 feet hallway turned into 150 feet. I said, oh, no, I'm not okay, man. I've never even seen this before. Like, I've had panic attacks, but I never seen that. It was like some Alice in Wonderland type. I don't even know. So he started walking over on this football field of a hallway to the bathroom, and legs start wobbling. And then before I know it, boom, I was freaking out, man. I woke up,
Mm.
and my legs were being dragged in front of me. I just saw my Converse being dragged on the floor, all floppy on the ground. I had the doctor that gave us the ultrasound on my left armpit underneath there, the nurse on the other side, and they're dragging me. And I just hear like, yeah, get him on the table, get him some sugar, we need some juice, like da this and that. I was like, what happened? I got a crazy headache. I just don't even know what happened, man. So That's what happened, and yeah, it was crazy, man. But because of that, that was the lowest I think I've ever felt in my life, because I
Mm,
felt less of a man. I felt like I wasn't there for her, even though there
mm,
wasn't really a moment for me to need to be there for. Just being a man, we kind of have this. Um, it's factory installed in us to feel like we need to be there for our partner in all things. And so even in sometimes when you in some instances when you
yeah.
don't need to
Yeah.
be, you feel like you failed because you weren't. And so I felt really low, man, and I felt embarrassed. I felt like she was going to look at me differently. I was like, man, like this is like this was so simple. The doctor, the nurse just said some words, and it caused me to pass out.
Yeah.
What is she going to think about me? I feel less of a
Yeah.
man. All this stuff, right? And my wife is not that kind of woman, and we worked through it. She helped me out, and it was amazing. But in the moment, my mind took me to a million negative places where it was like, well, maybe she thinks this, maybe that. Well, dude, how are you going to go to the next visit? You got another 20 to go over these next 20 months, right? Or 9 months. And so
Yeah.
so yeah, man, it was difficult. But that's in a nutshell what happened with my anxiety, and getting the best of me, and ultimately passing out in the hallway of the doctor's office.
That's so wild. Have you done things to address your anxiety? Have you also realized if you have anxiety just out of hospital situations?
Good question. So yes, on the first part, as far as doing different things to kind of get over it. Been to doctor visits for myself. Obviously, I had the rest of the term to go with her to for their other visits, and I was fine during those. And so it
Right.
was it was it was great, but it was difficult though. It was a difficult time for sure. I've gotten my blood drawn since then. I got a couple life insurance policies,
Mm,
so you got to get a physical for that. Very nervous for
right.
that when the person was coming to our house to take my labs, but everything was fine. I think
Yeah.
actually no, I don't think I know that anxiety is all in your head, but your brain is so powerful it will make you feel physical things up with your body, and so it's you get
Yeah.
control of your mind, man. You'll be okay, but it takes a lot of practice. Maybe going to therapy. I'm definitely a person that recommends going to therapy. Anything you can.
Mm,
There's no tools off limits,
yeah.
man. These tools are all here for us for a reason. And so any guy that says, I'm not going to therapy and sitting on the couch and crying, whatever, I'm not saying you got to cry, man, but you better talk.
Right. Right. You also do a little coaching yourself on the topics that you
Mm-hmm.
bring up. Is that
Yep.
right?
Yes, sir.
So, are you? Is this something? What do you help men with, or what is your approach to that? Is it just being a better man overall?
Basically, yeah, in a nutshell. So I like helping them in the areas of confidence, and because I believe
Mm,
that a man that's confident in himself and his capabilities, that'll bleed into everything else. That'll help you have better relationships. You will work better. You'll be more effective in the gym. If you have belief in yourself, like again, even in the gym, because you might be thinking, how would that help you there? I mean, when you get under that weight, I want you to feel confident in your abilities and being able to, whatever you take off the rack, you're going to be able to put back on. And so confidence is
yeah.
everything, man. And another reason why it's so important to me is because my mom installed that in me at a young age. Like when I in elementary school, she taught a self-esteem class, and she came to my school and she
Mm,
would teach. I think it was I mean, obviously it's been so long ago, I can't remember the schedule, the timeline, but I remember she would come every week and she would teach the kids about self-esteem and loving themselves and whatnot. And so I got all those lessons very early on. So even though I was missing my dad, I didn't. I was confident in my own abilities that hey, even though he's not here, I'll be okay, and I'll be able to exceed far past even people that have both their parents in their house because of the lessons my mom taught me. So I teach young men about confidence, and really becoming that person, the not even the 2.0, the 10.0 version of themselves, so they can go and just crush their accomplishments and their goals, man.
dope. I love that. I love that. And that, for me, that leads to something I'm very interested in. And, you know, like I always say at the top of this with coaching, my nutritional approach, it's not just eating, it's mental, physical, spiritual approach. And I look to mental
Mm-hmm.
health specifically. So this, for me, this comes to mindset. Um, Having a winning mindset. And again, I know you a little bit more, than what we've been talking about so far. And I know some of your influences and some of the things you've even been saying during our conversation right now leads to, again, this mindset. Like, confidence
Mm-hmm.
is a mindset, right? The self-esteem that you learned from your mom, which I think is dope. And it's it's one of those amazing intangibles that I know you probably know this already, but when you can look back sometimes and be like, damn, like in the moment, you're probably like,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, self
Right.
esteem, blah, 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 whatever. What is this, that you're teaching me? Hindsight, you look back and you're like, damn, that's one of those gems that probably just sat in your
Mm-hmm.
subconscious. And lo and behold, we have the confident Lheighton in front of us, but it's a result of, that's one of the things that's been
Mm-hmm.
seated in your mental years ago, and now you've just may have been dormant, but you've been
Mm-hmm.
awakening that, excuse me, over the years. So I love that, and I also just love connecting
Yeah.
dots like that and seeing those things being connected. um, so yeah, yeah, back to mindset. So it ain't easy for everybody, right? uh, and just like in sports or whatever, they say the majority of the time it's
Right.
all mental, right? And once you can get your mental right, you can get a lot of other things correct. Anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
same thing. But there are other aspects to yourself that lead to improvement. So for me, I'm leading into, what are you doing? What do you do as Leighton to improve your mindset, mind, soul, and or body? What does that look like in a daily
Yeah,
routine
for
for
sure. Great
yourself?
question, man. So it really comes from, for me, doing absolutely anything I can every single day to test myself in whatever situation. That can be immediately comes to mind is the gym. That's where a lot of people get a lot of mindset training.
Mm,
You think, well, you're going there to lift weights for your body, for
yeah.
your for your physique. Yes, but that's partially right because you're also training your mind. If you number one, there are going to be a lot of days you don't want to get up and go to the gym. So what happens when you get up anyways and you go? You're building mental toughness. So that's number one. Number two,
Yeah.
you have to be able to control your mind when you're lifting those weights because as soon as you, man, it's crazy. One of my coaches, Nate, he taught me this. He says, if you can control your face, like the faces you make while you're lifting weights, you'll be able to lift a lot heavier. I said, what do you mean? He says, you ever know when you're lifting, you're
Hmm.
curling or pressing, whatever you're doing, and you start to get that rep where you get that face where you're like just like struggling, right? You're just getting that weight up. When you do that, your
Yeah.
mind is saying, oh, this is
Yeah.
hard, this is heavy, I can't go another rep. But if you can control your face to be like, there's nothing. I'm doing it. You'll get a couple more out. That's
Yeah.
how powerful your
Yeah.
mind is, and so that is literally directly related to what you can do physically. So your mind controls everything. So the gym is one of the first things I think of. With my girls, I'm gonna keep it all the way 100, like I always do on my own content. Having patience with my
Yeah.
wife and kids sometimes. Like I am,
Mm, mm,
very nice person in general, but there are times, man, where you just like they're
yeah.
just testing you, and it's tough. There's some other
Yeah.
mindset,
Yeah.
training for you, and so there's all kinds of different things that you can use. If you choose to look at it that perspective, you can choose. You can look at it a million different tests that you have right in front of you. You just didn't even realize it because you probably looked at it the wrong way. You looked at it. This is hard. This is adversity. This is or it's nothing. It's not even a big deal. It is if you look at it as a big deal. Hey, this is a good opportunity to practice this. As I said earlier, with my dad and
Right.
forgiving him, that was a perfect opportunity to practice leading and some of these skills that I'm trying to teach everybody else. And so there's an opportunity every single day. I'd argue multiple times a day to practice strengthen your mind. And so the gym, my family, even with work and business, making sure that I
Mm,
do the best I can there. Like it's all mindset training.
mm. Love it. Love it. Are you or can you share, is there any
Excuse
specific
me.
routine you do on a all good that you do on a daily basis that sets you up mentally to get yourself ready
Of
for the
course.
day? I know
Of
gym's
course.
going to
Yeah,
be
gym
in
is
there
definitely the first
because
one. Um, Actually, it's not the first one. That would be a lie. The first one is it starts the day before. So you got to get prepared the day before. So I have
uh
my Clothes set out the day before. So literally, I don't have to do any. I don't need to make any decisions, unnecessary decisions in the morning. I literally just I go downstairs. My clothes are already laid out. I have my food set out for the day before. Put in my backpack. Whatever I need to eat in order to get to the gym and have a good workout. So all that's prepared the day before. So actually, a good,
Mm.
productive, successful day starts the day before. Have everything set up for the next day. Then in the morning, go crush a workout first thing, and you're off to the races. But those are the most important things to me. If I don't get a workout and I don't prepare my day before,
Yeah.
it's tough.
Yeah. Nah, I hear you. And I'm with you. Even you mentioning the, kind of this mental stamina and resilience that you build
Hmm.
through the gym, going when you don't want to go. This morning was one of those
Yep.
mornings in LA where, we just
The
have the year
weather,
of rain
exactly.
and, yeah, yeah, weather bothers you. Oh, it's
Hmm.
cold and it's rainy and it's 5 in the morning. Just, that's the only time I can have to carve out for myself to get to the gym is that alarm clock goes off at, actually it goes off at 4:59 a.m. for me to be able to get up, so I feel
Good to
like I'm
go.
ahead of the game in that way. Yeah, so that's my little mental trick also. It's like not 5 a.m., 4:59 a.m.
There it
I'm
is.
up ahead of the game. Get ahead of it. And yeah, and again, once you commit, you've built that mental toughness, you've built that mental stamina, your mindset becomes more focused on doing the thing, then actually
Hmm.
doing the thing gives you all the health benefits, it gives you the clarity, the focus, the dopamine hit. I mean, I can go on and on and on and on, that. um so I love that, and I love you appreciate I
And another
appreciate you
thing too, I'll
sharing
add too,
that.
man. Not to cut you off,
uh
but just another thing too is when you were speaking was
no, go.
remembering to be grateful. Remember to be grateful for the things that you have. The
Mm.
car that you're driving to go to the gym, or maybe you don't have a car, you're riding a bike. Be grateful for that. When we have sunny days, be grateful for that. When it rains, be grateful for that because California's in a drought all the time, so to speak. So there's
Right.
so many things
Right.
to be grateful for,
Right.
man. Your relationships and things like that, and as I just said before, sometimes it's easy to be frustrated with some of those people, your family, your spouse, your kids, or your coworkers, whatever. But if you can kind of change, you can pivot, you can change your perspective on these people or at least their relationships to you, you'll have a much better day because you're thinking about it in a positive way versus these people are trying to make me mad. They're trying to annoy me. She knew what she was doing when she said that, whatever. That's very
Right.
easy to do.
Right.
But
Right.
if you can kind of just shift your mind and say, hey, give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe that was an accident. They're just kids, whatever it is, and be grateful for them. Say, hey, man, they're
Yeah.
not going to be that small
Yeah.
forever. You know, that there's going to be, we'll
Yeah.
have different things to deal with in the future. But right now, let me enjoy this right here. And so that's something that I have to practice every single day. I'll tell you guys straight out, it's not easy. But that's the thing that I focus on every single day of trying to
Right.
get better with is just being more grateful, man, being more present in the moment, not being on my phone all the time. There's some couple things. But anyways, throughout your day, remembering to be grateful is another really key point as well.
No, I love that, and I'm glad you brought that up because that's that's been a big. I mean, that's just a whole other conversation I can and pathway I can go down for a whole other conversation because it's something I've learned, especially as a dad. You keep alluding to the father dynamic, and that's something, just repositioning the, oh my god, they're getting on my nerves, they're testing me, where you change it around and you're saying maybe they just want
Hmm.
my attention. Maybe they can't communicate. They're only
Right,
X amount of years old. They don't have the faculties to communicate the way we can. Some of us as adults
right,
still
right.
don't know how to communicate to each other. You know what I mean? So, my daughter just turned 5,
So
and
awesome.
she's evolving in terms of, thank you, in terms of how she can communicate and how she
Yep.
can tell me what she wants. And the moment that switch and that light bulb went on in my head where I said, "Oh, she's just
Hmm.
trying to communicate with me." I mean, and the same thing, even with relationships, and your wife, my wife, and you bring it up the
Yeah.
testing thing also. Tr- you know, they're just trying to communicate. We're trying
Right.
to communicate back, and maybe, we need to pause. We need to be more present. We need to be aware of what are they saying, and what are they saying, not necessarily just what they're saying verbally, but their
Hmm.
cues, their physical cues, emotionally. What were they going through? Maybe they went through,
Exactly.
maybe they had a day and
Exactly.
then they
Yeah.
came back. You know what I mean? To more of a day that just continues and weighs on them. So there
Hmm.
is a lot to your point. I think, everything you mentioned, gratitude, presence, being more present, getting off the social media. And if you're on the social media, my quick tip that I've started doing is I always put a timer. So if it's not anything for my business or for advancing myself or what I'm working on, you put that timer on. When it goes
Hmm.
ding, that's it. Tap out, done. I don't care how great the story is. I don't
Right.
care how great the viral TikTok
Yeah.
dance is. It's time to stop dancing, put the phone down, and
Hmm.
put your efforts where you need to. Um, yeah, now you got the again
There it
coach
is,
fired
man.
up
There
in
it
me.
is.
So I feel I feel like we could do
Exactly.
the coaching to
Exactly.
coaching now.
And but
But
I point to your point though. I also think it'd be
uh,
a tool too, man. Like I use social media as a tool to have even more fun with the kids, and that's not all we do. Obviously, we go outside. Just on my stories yesterday, I was building this freaking trampoline for my
sure,
daughter, so it's definitely we're active, right? But one of the things we like doing is
yeah,
watching funny videos on TikTok, and people falling, and jokes or whatever, and so that's kind of a little time that we do together. We just scroll, we just laugh at videos, and we just bust up. Like that's what me and my wife used to do when we were dating. And it was funny because I would go over to their house, and she obviously still lived with her parents, and we just hang out in her room. We just be laughing the whole time, and their parents thought that was so cool, like that we just didn't even need to do anything. We'd go out, obviously, a lot, but we could just be in
yeah.
the house, just laughing at videos, just watching TV or whatever, just having fun, enjoying each other's company, and that came from social media and TV or whatever. So it could be used as a tool, just as long as you're including the person and you're doing it together and you're having fun. It doesn't even matter, man. You could use anything as a tool, man. But just yeah, I just that was something that came to mind.
No, love that, love that. Like I said, I can keep going, but I will pause the
You
conversation
know,
for now until we come back on here again. Are there any projects that are coming up that you want to let the good people know about, or that dope hat you got on
thanks,
your
mate.
crown right there, thefatherbrand.com? Doing
I
a
appreciate you.
quick drop
I
for you,
appreciate
but
you. Yeah, man. I mean, so fatherbrand.com, and the four is replacing the letter A in father. So F4THER brand.com. So yeah, you can definitely get some merch there, get some hats there. I need to be more active there, to be honest with you, just with all the other stuff I have going on right now. The brand is kind of the clothing part of the brand has taken a back seat, just because there's so many projects going on, man. So what we have coming up is a lot of work with
dope.
Bedros. I don't know how familiar, whoever's watching this, I don't know how familiar you are with Bedros Koulian. He's a mentor of mine. I'm actually not even in my home studio right now. I'm in Bedros' studio right now. And so we're doing a lot of work together, partnering on a mastermind here later this year. So that's going to be awesome. That's going to be exciting. So it's really just stay tuned for more content, more motivation, more embarrassing stories, just something to help uplift you guys, make you laugh, and just, I hope you enjoy the message that I have to impart. So that's what you can look forward to.
Dope. Appreciate you, Leighton. And where can the good people find you on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube? Is it all
Yep, it
King
should
Cook
be.
with
Yeah, it
two
should. Well, not
Ks?
should be. It is on TikTok and Instagram. On YouTube, it's my first and last name, Lheyton Cook. But I actually think you can search King Cook and it'll come up there too. But either way, my YouTube is linked on my TikTok and Instagram. So if you find one of those under King Cook, you'll find my YouTube real easy. So yeah, exactly, man.
You'll
So
find the
active on both
others.
of them. A lot of stories on Instagram, TikTok, posting some stuff there all the time. And so yeah, man, that's where you can find me.
Love it. Love it. Again, Leighton, I appreciate you. I appreciate you for being very open,
Yeah,
very honest, and very real with all of the
gotta be.
conversation that we had today. Good people, thank you. Good people, don't forget to tell another brother, king, or queen about man to man so we can keep convos like this going and keep the wellness revolution going. Plus, if you're liking what you're hearing, give us those 5 stars and leave a dope review. And if there's someone you want to hear, like Lheighton on Man to Man, connect with me on Instagram at Wasicki, WASICKI. Till next week, fam. Peace, love, and forgiveness.